Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. We are going old school this Thursday. I'm joined today by John Paul Mason and Kevin Graham. How long ago was it, gentlemen, that we were joined at the toll booth in Stirling? How many years? JP, I know you will know this.
6.
6 years.
It would have been 6, aye.
This month.
Wow. And the first time, Kev, you came around to do episode 1 of the Celtic State of Mind in my kitchen, you were wearing a Michael Head t-shirt, and he is playing next month at the toll booth.
And I'm
Funny
going.
how these things happen. You're going. Well, you know.
And I'm going.
See on that, I'm doing something a bit daft, but I'm creating a King Tut's gig archive. And Shaq played Tuts in like 1991 or 92. I can't remember what year it was, but they played like 2, maybe 3 times. So I don't know if it was sold out or what, if they were popular at that time, but
they had a couple of cult albums early on. Sorry, on you go, Kev.
JP, see the first time we interviewed you up the toll, obviously you had that People's Top on, and nothing's changed since that People's Top came out, and the board are still useless. Let's get that in there right away, since we're board Tory apologists, according to a lot of the commenters yesterday. Right. Who did you go to see as Europa Music on the way down? Was it Kyle Faulkner? Was playing in the record shop just down for the toll booth? Was it Kyle Faulkner?
I don't know. Did I say I went to see somebody live?
He says that you're going to see
somebody had just played live, and I think it was The View. I'd missed it. It happened earlier on.
I think it was Kyle Faulkner. I was playing in Stirling that day.
I'm sure it was, because I'd missed it, because I don't recall seeing anybody like. But it just happened in that shop that day.
Europa Music.
Gentlemen, and of course, Kyle Faulkner's a Celtic fan. There you go. We pull it back to Celtic, one fell swoop. Gentlemen, I'm going to be talking, obviously, about the news that broke last night in relation to JP and my favourite player, Matt O'Reilly. I think we set up the Matt O'Reilly CSC some time ago, or was it a fan club? I'm not sure, JP. But there's a few members of that fan club, and we were hearing last night that the latest offer from Brighton is £25 million plus £4 million in add-ons, taking it up to 29. We ran a headline during the week saying that we shouldn't accept a penny less than 30 million, but you know the board will. And, you know, it just reeks to me of waiting until we bring money in before we actually go and get our business done. So I'm going to start off by looking at the transfer business we've done in the last few seasons, because, Kev, you quite rightly said we will spend what we bring in, and everything else that happens at the club will look after itself.
There we go. There's the fella. There's the fella, Mr. P. O'Neill. He likes calling us Tories, Paul. He likes it. So, there we go. Sorry.
I could bring up some of the headlines that would absolutely blow that out of the water, but we're focused on the discussion points today. Right, so let's say, Kev, your theory is correct, and whatever we bring in player trading, we use to strengthen the squad, right? So what I did, I just went back to Angie's first season. So 3 full seasons plus almost a full transfer window here. So if we go back to 2021-22, when Ange came in, although we did shell out quite a lot of dough, we did bring in big money for the likes of Edouard, Ayer, Christie, and we made over £10 million in that couple of transfer windows. Moving on to Angie's next season, we spent a bit of dough because we had CCV and Jota coming in, and we actually ran with a deficit of 12.3 in that window. And then last season, because of the massive sale of Jota and then other sales of players like Abada, we brought in over £21 million in profit just on player trading. So overall, including this pre-season, where we have also brought in a profit, we are currently sitting at 20.882 million, almost £21 million in the last 4 and a bit seasons, Kev. So that being the case, before anything happens with Matt O'Reilly, £21 million still to spend, even though at the moment we have spent 4.4, that would take us up to 25 million quid. Is it happening? If not, why not? Why are we sitting on piles and piles of money? And I'll go back right to the glory and the dream. You know, I know Paul Sheridan, through people like yourself, JP, and the Wakes, re-recorded it for charity, and he did a brilliant spoken word part in the middle of that, and it was from the original circular from November 1887. The main object of the club is to supply the East End conferences of the St. Vincent de Paul Society with funds for the maintenance of the dinner tables of our needy children in the missions of St. Mary's Sacred Heart and St. Michael's. It says here, many cases of sheer poverty are left unaided through lack of means. Not much has changed, because if you think about where we are as a society today in terms of poverty, and you look at the amount of people who buy a season ticket and merchandise who are on the breadline, right? Because a massive part of their disposable income is put into Celtic Football Club. And you've got the fat cats sitting on 100 million quid and we're about to sell our best asset. That doesn't add up to me, JP. I'm now at the stage where it doesn't add up. I've heard all the Euros excuses. I've heard how it's difficult to get deals over the line. I'm not buying any of it. We all know where we need to strengthen, and everything is going at a snail's pace. Even if we bring them in before the end of the transfer window, we need to bed them in for a game against Rangers. We need to bed them in for Champions League games. In the 3 and a bit seasons, what have we won? Okay, domestically, 7 out of 9 trophies. We dominate Scottish football. But in Europe, in Angie's first season, we got to the Europa League group stages where we got 9 points, qualifying for a playoff for the Conference League, which we lost. We then went into the group stages of the Champions League. We got 2 points. And then last season, we got 4. So what are we doing with the money? Are we reinvesting it sufficiently in the squad? My answer would be no, miles off. What's your take on it, JP?
Well, I just was looking up there to see did you read the article by Graham McGarry in the Herald? I think it was.
No.
Are you aware of Graham McGarry? I don't really know much about him.
No.
Well, it was an article that basically said it was kind of talking about the lack of spending from Celtic and looking at it from the perspective of the rest of the. He used a Friends quote to try and bolster his sort of argument, as if to say, like, the rest of Scottish football will be like going, oh, well, boo-hoo, you've got tons of money, you should be glad about that, you're winning the league, you've got this great side that's superior to the rest. But he actually looked at it from, I don't know if he is a Celtic fan, but he looked at it from a Celtic fan's perspective, as if to say, well, look at the lack of progress in Europe and the fact that we haven't won a knockout tie for 20 years. Look at the fact that we have this excess of cash and we have glaring holes in the squad and in the first team for backups. The money we have spent has not been spent wisely. If you look at Lagerbielke and Navrojki as 2 examples of a spend of what, something close to 8 million for the 2 of them, and they haven't contributed even 50% of what you would expect from an outlay on players of that fee. And I just was reading it going, do you know what, if this had been written by Ewan Murray, the poison would have been dripping from the pen. Do you know what I mean? He's obviously got a serious issue with Celtic, whether he's a Hearts fan or whatever he is, but I could imagine the same article being written by him having a go at us for being sort of entitled or whatever people think of Celtic fans. But I think we're now in a position where we've got 8 Champions League games coming up and we are not tooled up for those 8 games. Whether or not I want to say, oh, it will not be as hard as it's been in the past. We're not going to get Paris Saint-Germain, Bayern Munich, Barcelona, Borussia Dortmund. It's not going to be a stacked group where we've got like sort of top tier clubs every single game. There's going to be a mixture in there, but just because there's going to be a mixture in there doesn't mean to say that we shouldn't go in as tooled up as we can be. And right now we're not. And from being honest, like, I'm not going to apologise for the board. I just spent £70 on that top, on top of £70 that I spent on the home top, on top of £700 odd I spent on my season ticket. Yeah. Why is my money that I'm putting into the club not being reinvested in the team?
Exactly.
And I'm not a rich person. You're talking about people. Okay, I'm not poor. I'm not struggling. But I obviously had to think about my decision to buy that top, and I was like, well, I'll buy that top. Can I really afford it? Not really. Do I want to get it out the sponsor before it sells out? Yes, I'll get it. And it's one of those. So it just, that's where I am on it. And the closer you get to the ticking bomb of the transfer window slamming shut, the closer you are to getting a serious protest outside Celtic Park. That's how close they are to dealing with. And if there is one at Celtic Park on the 1st of September, I'll be there. I won't be throwing sharks. I won't be doing anything that is considered unruly or illegal or anything like that. But I will take part in a protest at the lack of spending, because it's absolutely ridiculous now at this point. And yes, we can be made to look stupid in a couple of weeks' time, and I really hope that's the case. I really hope they're sitting there with their feet up after the transfer window closed and go, I mind all those guys like going mental on podcasts and check out them, we idiots on podcasts or whatever. Well, I'm sorry. If that isn't the case and you haven't spent the money, you're going to have an unhappy manager because he's banged the drum the whole time about the spending and the quality that he wants to get in. And he wants the same as what Celtic supporters want, an improved squad. And we've not got it.
Thing is, JP, what you're explaining there is a position that many of us find ourselves in, working class with X amount of disposable income. The last 2 bits of engagement I've got from Celtic Football Club was buy the new away kit and then get your kid to join the Young Hoops. Anybody that's on the mailing list or whatever will have got the 2 same emails. And basically it's all one-way traffic. Give me your dough. That's what they're saying. Give me your money. Right, you've got our season ticket cash. You've got this money, which is £21 million in the black profit over the last 3 and a bit seasons in terms of transfer player trading only, right? If you want to ring fence that, as Kev says, I'll get put back into the team. Well, it hasn't. £21 million sitting there, gathering dust. And there's a big mountain of cash, so much so that we had to tell the stock exchange, oh, by the way, we're even more wadded than we expected. That's the second time I've seen that. And the reason I read out the circular, which was actually the original, and it didn't mention supporting the unemployed. That was an add-on that was never said at the time. The circular basically shows you the roots of Celtic Football Club, and you fast forward to who supports the club. The working classes mainly. Some of these people go on to build successful businesses and have a few quid in their pocket. Brilliant. Still working class, but we're still poor. There are still people in poverty, and we still pump our money into Celtic. Not so that you can keep it. Not so that you can, sit on a mound of cash like Scrooge McDuck, so that you can actually improve the playing staff. Now, Kev, I'm going to say to you, we've been talking about this now for 7 years, Kev, in relation to aspirations. There was 2 things that always stick in my throat. Always. The first one was Ian Bankier when he says, we can't compete in Europe. You'll remember it, right? When he was the chairman of the football club, and thankfully he no longer is. The other one was Brian Wilson in a dial-in that you and I were both dialed into, and I think it was during COVID, whereby somebody, I don't know if he was a plant in the room, but somebody said, regardless of what happens, I'll be renewing my 4 season tickets, and I'll do it today. And Brian Wilson turned around and goes, that's what I like to hear. And I was thinking, you're so far removed from the reality of the football punter, Kev. And these are the 2 things that stick in my mind, because one of the aforementioned are still on the Celtic board. It is getting to that point. Now, JP, on the one hand, I get what you're saying. On the other hand, I would make no apologies for today's conversation because we are where we are and we've not been told anything different. It's not like they communicate and say, this is the reason and this is our aspirations and this is what we're going to do. So therefore, I think it's only natural that people will become frustrated. And I see a lot of it in our comments, on the social media, speaking to Celtic supporters, speaking to friends, speaking to family. Kev, where are you on this?
I'm utterly fed up. And you take me back to that point, and that point was after the COVID season. That meeting was after the COVID season when we were asking if we could maybe get something back for people who had maybe lost their jobs, who had bought season tickets for a season that they never got. And we were basically ended up getting a 50 quid voucher for the shop. I spend it, I will give you something back, but spend it within Celtic, which completely sums them up. Where am I? If we're not a modern football club, and nothing's going to change until we are a modern football club. I don't think it would matter if you had Jose Mourinho in charge or Pep Guardiola. You had somebody that was a top talent scouter in the world, or Coco the Clown. Until we become a modern football club, nothing is actually going to change. And what I mean by a modern football club is, by the way, 18-year-old laddies are getting 20 grand a week now. That's if first team players to take us to the next level actually want £40,000 a week. They didn't want 12 grand a week. They didn't want 18 grand a week. We need a complete move. We need to get the squad done. We need to get the squad down to 20 players there who are earning between 30 and 40,000 pounds a week. And the rest is made up of youngsters who, when they get to 17, 18, we're not getting outbid by Watford. We can offer them, maybe not the 25 grand that Watford offered them, but you could have went to Rudy Vata. By the way, we'll give you 20, stay here and you're getting game time.
Kev.
We are not a modern football club in any way, shape or form. Nothing's changed within the last Seville. The end of time. There's two ends of times. Seville, when we downsized the season after it, then Rangers gone bust.
I think Seville's in the middle of the fact that we were so close to financial ruin in '94. Kev, I agree with you. I think it's '94. I think it's 2003, and it's 2012.
At 2012, we gave up any notion whatsoever of being a big football club. We gave up any notion whatsoever. It's easy for the board to say, look at our financials, look at this, look at that, look at this, look at that. Aye, because we give you the money. You didn't need to do nothing for the money. If yous were in, we've got no competition and we just feed you the cash, and until we stop feeding you the cash, nothing's ever going to change. You look at the game on Sunday. It was a strange atmosphere on the lead up to the game. It was silent. Anybody you spoke to, this is terrible. Eh? What am I doing back here? I just come back here out of habit. I just come back here because I've got nothing else to do. And that was like the thing with magnificent display. You support the team for the 90 minutes and you go back home and you're gone like that. We're not going to get anything further. See, there's apathy now. There's real apathy, because unless we burn the place down, there's no change. We can't change it unless we stop giving them money and destroy it.
Just for P. O'Neill, Kev doesn't want to burn the place down. He didn't mean it literally, just so that we can get that out there before you get a knock on the door, Kev.
I just found that article, by the way, the Graham McGarry one. So again, if anybody knows if Graham McGarry is pro-Celtic or has been anti-Celtic in the past, I'd be interested to know, because I'd be interested to know if he is anti-Celtic, because he's written an article that kind of does this. I mean, I'll read a bit of it. Boasting about rude financial health is all well and good, and the vast majority of Celtic fans will be, I'm sure, glad that their club is being run with a level of financial prudence. Of course we are. Mm-hmm. But there are limits to their satisfaction at a healthy bottom line when they don't see that cash trickling between the white lines in the pitch. I think that's pretty...
Yeah, that's fair.
It is totally fair. I mean, as a supporter of a club, you're supporting the club and you want to see the club do the best it possibly can with the finances that it has available. And we're not seeing that. We're not seeing it. And as Kev said about the atmosphere on Saturday, it does, Sunday, sorry, it does kind of, you do feel it. It's like, well, where's the progression here? This is great and all that. Yeah, we're swatting a Kilmarnock team to the side that had major injury problems and had just played a European game when they're not remotely tooled up to deal with European football and domestic football. So we probably got Kilmarnock at one of the best times we could for an opening day home game in the season. So that's all very well and good, but your eye is on what's going on behind the scenes, and we, like you said, we don't know what's going on behind the scenes. We're not privy to missed targets or anything like that. It's not as if we know we've bid for X player and then we've been told no and we're moved on to the next player. We just don't know anything at all. I mean, the Ida thing is a complete mystery as to why that's not developed, and we're right to ask the question, why not? If the manager wants him, why have we not signed him?
No, you're right, and quite clearly, it was one of these situations where it all seemed as though it was lined up, and then he failed to turn up for the flight, and he started getting the flack that undoubtedly he expected. And at that point, Celtic should complete the circle and sign the player, but we don't. And by the way, can I just say, Kevin Graham sometimes comes across as, what am I doing? I know what you're doing there, Kev. You're a lifelong Celtic fan. You're Celtic daft. It's part and parcel of your day-to-day life. You live and breathe it. But you're as frustrated as me. You're as frustrated as the next person. You're as frustrated as so many people in the comments.
You do get frustrated, but then you get back on the supporters bus with your mates. You take your daughter to the game and you understand why you do it, right?
Of course, yeah.
You need to try and shut out all this noise, like Michael Nicholson and Chris Mackay I'm just glad they're no Just Eat drivers, because you would never get your food, because they didn't deliver absolutely anything, did they? It's absolutely. I mean, when did Rodgers had these wee conversations with him? And nothing's happened. If anything, the radio silences do even worse.
Yeah.
Of there's nothing seemingly going on, and it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous. And it wouldn't matter if we went and signed Mbappe in the next 2 weeks. No, you have done this far too late. And if we do sell Matt O'Reilly, which is looking likely, and they do spend money, then you'll go like that. Well, you were waiting just on getting that money in the door before you actually spend it. And I'm going to say optics. And it is the optics at how they're going to do their business being out at the end of the season. And their business is likely to be either Matt O'Reilly replacement is already in the door in Bernardo, and they'll sign probably 3 or 4 loan guys for the English Premier League in the last week of the window. It makes no difference. Doesn't sort anything, and rinse and repeat until next year and it happens again.
The thing is,
they have not changed in 20 odd years.
We're hearing links to loan players, Kev. But that's what we're hearing at the moment, is links. Now, if we had our 2 loanees in the door nice and early from last season, I'm talking about, and then we'd sorted out the goalkeeper situation, and we brought in 2 players of absolute quality, and you're looking at them and you're thinking, it worked with Jota and CCV, it's worked with Bernardo and Ida, I get it. But there just seems a sense of panic, because we know the recruitment setup and the structure is dysfunctional, absolutely dysfunctional. I'm going to bring in as many comments as I can today, because it's not just about JP, myself, and Kevin's opinions. It's about everybody's opinions to try and get a balance. But what I would say, going back to a point Kevin made there, Celtic Football Club, right? You imagine being on the board at Celtic, whereby every season the season tickets sell out. Every season you release 4 new sets of kits and God knows how many different ranges, and it sells by the bucket load. You've got a brand that's recognised all over the world. It's not difficult, right, to go and do a deal with Adidas. Don't give me the stuff, when we did the deal with Adidas, a record-breaking deal. I'll tell you what's hard. Being the CEO of Albion Rovers and trying to get a kit deal, that's a tough gig. Being the CEO of Celtic, or being the merchandising guy at Celtic, or the marketing guy, it was Adrian Philby that done the deal, I think, right? Fair play to him, he's away somewhere else now, I think, way down south. That isn't a hard gig. If you walk into a room and Celtic football...
He's away.
I thought he was kind of... He'll probably come back at the end of the rant. He'll come back at the end of the rant.
At the end of the rant? Who's cutting me off?
Well, that's a big question, eh?
It's not a hard gig.
It's shitty in, basically.
It's an open goal every time. Every time.
It is shooty in, and unfortunately I've seen behind the curtain, and it's very, very shooty in. And we know, everybody's going, what about the protest? The pods need to get there and get all together and protest to the board. We know for a fact that there'll be somebody, it's very, very high up in Celtic, watching this broadcast, isn't it? We know for a fact.
Yeah, 100%.
And they'll be watching all the rest of them as well, the good, the bad, and the indifferent ones. And we know.
It doesn't take us to stir up the need for a protest. That will happen organically regardless of this podcast, any other podcast. That will happen organically if money is not spent in a not in a rash or a crazy way, but if money's not spent on this team, if we're not looking at having spent like 15 to 20 million pounds on this team to improve it before the end of the transfer window, then of course there'll be unrest and dissatisfaction. Do they honestly expect us to just be like, oh well, that's what we've come to expect, shrug the shoulders and just move on and then accept our fate? And for those of us that want to go and spend £500 to £1,000 on a away trip in Europe just to get humiliated again by some mediocre European club that's a smaller club than Celtic, but that arranges their finances in a way that allows them to put a team together to compete in the Champions League. Because how many times has that happened? How many times have we gone and been not embarrassed, but been beaten by clubs that...
Bodo Glimt. I think Bodo Glimt's a great example. Bodo Glimt. Who are they? Seriously. Celtic Football Club, right? We're playing in Scottish football. Every other team in the country is skint. So, winning out at 7 out of 9, it's great, but we should be winning 7 out of 9 trophies every time. Every single time.
It's as you say, it's shooting in. And we are getting to the point. I mean, we do know that there's people with the club listening to this. They listen to all the other podcasts as well, and they just ignore us. They just utterly ignore us because they go, "Oh, look at all the trophies we've won. Look at this. Look at that." No, Celtic Park's a tip. It is. The surrounding area is falling down. The stadium is 30 years old. This is my 30th anniversary as a season ticket holder. I didn't actually realise that until 30 years since Hampden. And we've come a long way from Hampden. And the only time we've ever showed a bit of vision was in that period under Fergus McCann. Since then, we've traded on that and we've just stood still. And it's just, we've been absolutely lucky that our rivals are even worse than us. And I'm not just talking about Rangers, I'm talking about the whole of Scottish football there. The point being, nobody on my supporters bus could remember who the Hibs manager was on Sunday.
Well, this is the
We
point.
were like that. Who's the Hibs manager? Couldn't tell you. And we only need to ken because you'll be sacked by September anyway.
We only need 10 in a decade.
Aye, and that is the environment that these guys are thinking they're a success in. I mean, somebody in the comments, I can't remember who it was, says that Adrian Fulby's away to Villa.
Yeah.
He'll maybe get found out down there because he's not in a one-horse race anymore.
Well, this is the thing, Kev. I mean, fair play for all the big, massive marketing and merchandising deals, but this is Celtic Football Club, and you're on the map because of the fans. It's not because of your player trading model that you've got all that money in the bank. Some of it, and it shouldn't be in there because apparently that's meant to go back on the park. But it's not down to the individuals. It's down to the supporters worldwide. And I'm keen to bring in comments. If I disappear, Kevin, JP will just run with it. They'll talk about, I don't know, 1960s funk or some kind of retro indie movie from the 70s. Absolutely, just run with it, guys. We'll run until the wheels come off. David Boyle, here we go. Hail, boys. Here is hoping we start to sign someone. Sorry, Jungle Lion first today. David Boyle, you were first today. There should be a prize for that. Anybody that beats Jungle Lion should get a prize. And the prize should be a packet of the cool as anything Acsom stickers. Did you see them?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Oh, right. For anyone who doesn't know, Acsom, there's a combination. There's a link underneath this video. Our merchandise is now done by a brilliant merchandising team called Merch Bitch, right? And they are also responsible for a Love Supreme, which I think Kev was aware of. Down south, Sunderland fanzine, long-running, award-winning. They now operate the Acsom merch, and they sent us a picture, a brilliant sticker pack, and it's like $5 for 10 stickers, JP, but they are tremendous, I've got to say. I can't wait to get a set myself.
Can I just point out, I meant the stadium footprint as a tip. Right. No, the East End of Glasgow.
Yeah, there is only one stadium falling down at the minute, Kev.
Did you not see the contrast that somebody shared in response to the new dressing room pictures? There was like a really, really bad leak in an area of the ground where people sit, and they were just like, yeah, you've spent all this money on a fancy dressing room, but there's a leak that is a leak that's been there for a long time and it's not been addressed. So
I remember JP going round doing the wonder, and I love Celtic Park. I mean, that, memories of that walk from wherever we managed to park the van to down London roads, past the supporters club and try to follow the back of my dad's Adidas Sambas, and then seeing Celtic Park, as it was back then. It wasn't a cathedral. It wasn't a modern stadium as it is now. I love it, and I still love it, and I still get that same feeling every time I drive down there and I see the park coming up on the horizon. But walking around and doing the wander in Paradise every single week, I did notice that, there's so much that could be done in and around the Celtic Park, because it's been visited by fans from all over the world, and they will point to the fact that their tour is the #1 tour in the world. I get it, but see, right around the stadium, and I always use Liverpool, and I know they've got a lot more money than us, but I went down there last year, Kev, for the award ceremony, and every tile, every block, every brick, everything was history, and it was all beautifully done. And I walked around the stadium and I was blown away by that. We should have that. This is Celtic Football Club. We've got more history than anybody could imagine, and we should celebrate it more. And there should be canvases, and there should be murals and plaques and statues all over the place for me, and a bandstand on that clover as well, JP?
Well, I stayed at the Millennium Hotel next to Chelsea a couple of times before travelling, and that too is a really. I mean, I know we're talking about Chelsea, who were had money pumped into them by a billionaire, probably, and now have a different billionaire pumping money into them. But it can't be that hard. It's not going to cost like hundreds of millions of pounds to put, like you say, plaques up. They've got like a walk of fame that goes round the wall that goes round the sort of inside of Stamford Bridge, and it's got like a picture and a bit of blurb about sort of legends, basically. And you think that there's plenty of scope to do something like that along the wall of the North Stand, maybe. I mean, I'm just plucking that as a random suggestion.
But everything's done half-baked. That's the problem. Everything's done half-baked, and it's done to a budget, and the cut corners here, there, and everywhere. And everybody's gone that, or is that you maybe shouting about getting the stadium done up rather than doing players? No, you can do both. But you can't let the stadium, it's a 30-year-old building. It is going to need work done to it because it's 30-year-old. It is going to need a lick of paint here and there and things brung up to speed. But what's the point of sitting on all this money? We're doing up Barrafield, and we got planning permission this morning for 2 big, massive signs at the head of the training complex and that. I mean, I still think they're going to rock up with the end of this transfer window and go, welcome to Hotel Paradiso. There's a big hotel getting put with the ticket office. I still think that's going to happen because they'll invest the money in infrastructure, or either that they're just going to pay tax on it.
We've got, the thing is, okay, you made a good point, and I'm going to keep going back to it. It's not one or the other. You can do both. Invest in the youth and the women's team and the training facilities up at Barrafield, brilliant. Invest in the stadium and invest on the park. And every so often we need to invest in the park. Now, JP, this is the thing. A lot of other football fans will be saying, look, listen to these guys, man. All they do is win and they're still moaning. But when you look at the intricacies of how we did it last season, we were poor for large parts of last season. I think the reason we won the double was Brendan Rodgers. Now, I know you can look at individual players and performances. Brendan Rodgers was able to somehow get the crux of a team that he was able to trust, bring them together and actually get us the results. But I'll tell you what, it wasn't free-flowing football all season. There was moments, we're talking about Easter Road, the 2 games at Easter Road. The first one, 0-0, we could have played all day long. We weren't scoring that day. And then the second one, Ida, I remember afterwards saying, is this a turning point? And folk were like, that was a rotten display. And you'll remember Boyle had a big penalty shout that night as well. Ida stepped up, scored the 2 penalties, the rest is history. But we can't be complacent. We weren't great last season, JP. So even if, you're thinking about, right, we need to maintain and improve domestically, we have to strengthen anyway. I know we're looking at Europe. We weren't brilliant last season, and we have to realise that we cannot become complacent here.
No, I think you're right. I think the Brendan Rodgers factor in it all was massive. You've got a really experienced manager who knew the club. It wasn't like he was coming into it cold or anything like that. That his experience as a Celtic manager previously definitely helped him in the hard times of last year, whether it was dealing with the press, whether it was dealing with the players, having the buy-in from the players that he had the first time, having the buy-in of the captain. Obviously, Callum McGregor was completely on board with Brendan Rodgers coming back as manager, having gone out to spend time with him in Mallorca or wherever it was. And that would permeate around the dressing room as well, that trust with the captain. So, as an example, would Enzo Maresca have won the league last season as a Celtic manager in his first season as Celtic manager? Amidst all of that, I'm not entirely sure he would have. I don't know if he would have had that same buy-in or the same nous, or I don't know. I just don't see that happening. So the fact that we've got Brendan Rodgers as manager, and he said that he wants to see out the 3 years here. And I was listening to the E-Tims podcast, and they asked the question, do you see Brendan Rodgers being here for the 3 seasons? And I think 2 of them said yes, and 1 of them said no.
I'm going to say no.
Yeah,
I'm going to say
I don't think he'll be here for the 3 seasons. I think if this transfer window goes south, he'll be looking for his first way out.
And But how sad is that if that's the case? How sad is that when it's not as if we're a club that is struggling for money, or we should be able to furnish him with whatever he wants, really, especially on the back of last season where he dug it. I think he dug us out of a hole.
Perfect environment, JP. He's the best manager Celtic Football Club can get right now. There is not a better manager that Celtic could attract to this football club. And a big part of that is the Celtic experience. He's quoted as saying that, right? The fact that he is of a Celtic state of mind. That's the reason we've got him. And we couldn't get a better...
We couldn't get a better manager.
We couldn't get a better man at the... We can fill in the blanks there.
Is it every time I'm getting critical?
I think it is.
It is.
As soon as the sort of volume of your voice goes up a couple of notches, it's just like, no, enough of that.
I start getting a bit angry. No, as I'm saying, it's all laid out. The money's there, he's there. We've got the crux of a good team. We've got the core of a good team. And I think a massive part of that question, that debate that you were talking about, JP, will be based on how this transfer window goes. Massive part of that decision.
Again, that's the one that said no was just like, oh, as soon as like, if there's moving parts in the English Premier League manager pyramid, and Eddie Howe goes to England and the Newcastle job becomes available, you know, will Brendan Rodgers be considered for that, or will somebody else get that, and then he'll get the job that person leaves, and basically sort of surmising that he would jump ship again. We shouldn't be giving him any reason to jump ship at all. Like he said when he came back, he was happy here and happy living in Glasgow. By all accounts, he's just built a new house somewhere. I don't know if that's true or not, but I heard that. So, as in Glasgow. So
that's where the steel went.
he got the first boat. There should not be any environment that exists within Celtic where Brendan Rodgers is unhappy as the manager. We did really well to get him back. As when he was linked with coming back, I was like, absolutely no way, surely not. How can we possibly lure Brendan Rodgers back? Forget about the circumstances in which he left. I was just thinking, how are we getting a Premier League manager again? This is wild. Like, this doesn't happen. And then you hear his reasons for coming back, that he wants to right a wrong and progress us in Europe. And then what seemingly the club are handicapping him from doing that, from being able to progress us in Europe, which is, I mean, if that is the case, that's insane to me. But there is still time to prove us wrong. But I mentioned that the Matt O'Reilly money, if that was being used to fund this transfer window, I sort of said that maybe last week or the week before, and I was like, surely not. Surely that's not what's happening. And then as it focuses going into this week, you're starting to think maybe that is what's happening. Maybe we are waiting for that to happen, for that movement to happen before we go and spend money. It shouldn't make a difference. The only difference it should make is if we're signing a guy that we see as a Matt O'Reilly replacement. But the rest of the team shouldn't be suffering. Our progress as a team shouldn't be suffering based on one player leaving or maybe leaving. Do you know?
No,
you're spot on.
There's two things here. I mean, it could be that we do not want to spend the money, or the guys that we've got trying to spend the money are completely incapable of doing it, and they're just not delivering. There's two, and we don't know what one that actually is. But I think it was Roger Mitchell that said we're run by accountants, and we've been run by accountants since basically for the last 20 years, and I think that shows in the way that we do business. Every manager that we have has at least one hand tied behind his back, sometimes two. And the way this Champions League format has changed now, if we go into it, we basically say we Adam Eder and a couple of guys for the English Premier League who can't get in the English Premier League squads just to fill gaps in our squad, then we're finishing 32 to 32, unless Rodgers has actually produced an utter miracle and actually got Liam Scales thinking he's Maldini and Greg Taylor up to Champions League standard. And that these two guys will always pick on, but you could replace anybody in our team and upgrade it. Everybody's up for grabs there. Some positions are easier today than others. The fact is, we haven't had a decent competition for Greg Taylor for a couple of years. We signed two centre halves last year who didn't seem to be fancied. One of them's always injured, the other one just doesn't seem to be fancied whatsoever. It's just an utter mess. And I mean, our rivals, I heard our rivals were talking about their game against Dynamo Kiev when I was in the office yesterday. And they're not in a very good place either, eh? But they were like trying to bum up the left back that they've signed and the winger that they've got on loan for Hingway. And I'm going, at least you've got something to sort of grab onto there.
Hingway FC.
Aye,
Where are they based? Does Bernabeu play for them? Where's he these days?
It's just, we're just one shambles after another shambles. Then we get away with it, and everybody in here shouting, going, "Oh, well, there'll be protests." I'll tell you one thing: we beat Rangers at Celtic Park. There'll be no protests. Everybody will be going, "Oh, it's great again," and we'll move on and forget about it.
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. There's been several articles I've read that really kind of harness the feeling of the support at the moment, and I think, like, regardless of that, I mean, it could be whatever scoreline you'd want against them, and I still think there's going to be real disappointment and real kind of probably anger as well, and we shouldn't have that within our support at all. It shouldn't be allowed to get to that stage. It's really sad that is the case, that you're going to really disenfranchise a large part of your support by not doing what. I mean, we're not asking them to spend crazy money or to spend in an erratic way or just go and sign anybody. But the fact that one of the things you pointed out, the fact that we don't have a head of recruitment in place and hasn't been in place since the departure of Mark Lawwell and is it Joe Dudgeon? Is that the other?
Joe Dudgeon, yeah.
So why, when those people left, was there not an immediate search for a replacement for them? Like, that doesn't make sense to me at all. Like, if you've not got it right at the top of the tree, that's what they've moaned about for so long, is that they didn't have anybody. Now they've got somebody. Whether or not he's any good or not is irrelevant. The fact is they have someone in position to do that job. If it's currently being relied on a certain person within Celtic or some sort of group of scouts to come together who haven't got the experience of being a director or a chief operator, no disrespect to them, but if it's a case of them putting together a list of names that then gets presented to the manager, and then he goes, right, okay, I know Kasper Schmeichel, I'll just text him, and then that's what happens. Like, and if that is what has happened, then that is absolutely wild.
Well, the thing with that is, and hopefully we'll get this out before I get cut off again, but we know you can join the dots. So you're right in what you said. Mark Lawwell was the head of recruitment and Joe Dudgeon was the head of scouting. And Mark Lawwell obviously had the wealth of Citigroup experience, as did Joe Dudgeon. And apparently, if we have to believe what we're told, Ange Postecoglou specifically wanted Mark Lawwell to get the job. And then Mark Lawwell and Joe Dudgeon both decided together at the same time that they would resign. Apparently, that's what we're told, right? So they leave, but that was a while ago. And now we're in a situation where the recruitment team consists of the following. And Kev, you'll probably be able to fill in the blanks if I do get cut off. So Brendan Rodgers is basically the director of football, but he's got a football team to sort out for the new season. And then his head of recruitment is actually Jay Lafeuve, who's the head of scouting, right? So it's completely dysfunctional. This should not be the case at a football club like Celtic, right? And then we've obviously got a team of scouts. They identify the players, and then it goes to Michael Nicholson, and it goes to Chris Mackay to get the deals done. So that is completely dysfunctional. So the route, even if we were willing, going back to what Kev says, we were willing to spend 25, 30, 36 million quid this summer, right? If we are willing to do it, we don't even have the structure in place to do it efficiently. And I think that's a big issue as well, Kev, because that's amateurish. It's amateurish.
It is, and we've got away with it for years, and we might get away with it again. And there's no denying that we could get away with it. It could be that towards the end of this window, like somebody in the comments pointed out that Cameron Carter, Vickers, and Jota were signed on the last 2 days of the transfer window as well under Postecoglou. Yes, sometimes it works. Sometimes it does
We had
work.
a bit of business done before they two guys came in, though, Kev.
Aye. And we may get away with it, but the fact is you can only get away with it so long. Then all of a sudden you end up like the season that we did lose the league, and they'll come along every so often if we continue doing business the way that we do it. And you will eventually not be able to attract guys like Brendan Rodgers. And let's not hang with it, right? The only reason that Rodgers is here, I'll say hang with again. See, I'm going to keep on saying it now because it's in my head. He's only there because he's a Celtic fan.
Yeah.
No other elite manager, they will look at us and go, "What, you want me to come here?" And
it's the Keno thing, isn't it? The Keno thing and Wayne Rooney and all that stuff.
Aye.
Gary Neville's like amazed that these guys only wanted to play for Celtic. And you're right, it's that Celtic experience that Rodgers spoke about.
No manager worth their salt is going to come and work under the conditions that they get put here. And Rodgers has maybe came in and thought, I can change this. They've told me it's change. He maybe thought towards the end of last season, I'm getting somewhere here. I've managed to fire the two gnomes at the door. I can get my own guys in, and it's no happened. It's nothing has actually happened. Martin O'Neill says in 2004, prepare for life in the slow lane. Well, we haven't moved since Martin O'Neill says that comment in 2004.
No, on a European level, you're right.
You've got to remember, Ange Postecoglou, remember his criticism was the speed of which it took to get deals done. He's like, I need to speak to people here to like basically put a rocket up their rear to get a deal done because time is of the essence. I mean, going back to the pitch, on Sunday when Kyogo went down, there was a definite gasp in the stadium that was audible because everyone's fully aware that there is no second striker to jump in. And imagine we had Champions League qualifiers. Imagine we were walking that tightrope right now that they're walking, where they've got this tie and then they've got another tie after that. Imagine we are doing that right now with an injured Kyogo and we're playing either Daisen Maeda if he's fit up top, Mikey Johnston. Like, can you imagine the absolute? I can't even imagine what the atmosphere would be like if we were starting a Champions League qualifier against Malmo or something with Mikey Johnson up front because we hadn't recruited to get a striker in. I know that's all if buts and maybes, and you can say it sounds fantasy land, but there's a reality where that is the reality.
It's typical though, JP, because for me, that's as typical as continually playing near beat on at centre half in Champions League qualifiers. It's as typical as playing Callum McGregor at left back in Champions League games or playing Owen O'Connell.
It's nothing against Mikey Johnston. He's not a striker. That's apparent. There's no way in the world he's a striker. He's barely a winger. And certainly for Celtic anyway, he's not proved it. So, and at Champions League level, he's not proved it at Champions League level either. So, that is not disrespectful to him. It's being disrespectful to the club and the situation that we found ourselves in. Because hell Mendes, if Kyogo does pick up an injury, and let's face it, he has been prone to an injury or two in his time at Celtic. He's scored a hell of a load of goals considering the amount of games he's missed. If he'd been available for he would have probably been well on course to break records, I would imagine.
But that point you make, it's so much more evident with Kyogo because we have nothing behind him. But the same issue will happen if Greg Taylor gets injured or if Liam Scales gets injured. Because you mentioned, Kev, JP, about the £8 million was shelled out on two central defenders last season. They are now 4th and 5th choice at Celtic because the first two are CCV and Scales, and Welsh is clearly the next man in line, right, for a game.
Because they're not letting Welsh leave.
Again, yeah. So it's Mechelen, it's Toulouse, it's Verona. 3 seasons now, and we're keeping him. He's played 20 games in 2 years.
One of the biggest problems with Welsh is the fact is he seems to look at a football and get injured.
Yeah, he's been unlucky, to be fair.
He has been unlucky with quite a lot, but that's how, like, he's only played 20 games since in 2 seasons.
Yeah.
It's bad decision making all over the shop. James McCarthy sneaked out the building seemingly. Have they actually announced that?
No, yeah.
Have they announced that? They've got a load of rubbish to try and get rid of, and I'm talking about plain staff, behind the scenes staff, and boardroom level. It needs an absolute broom to just go right through the place and go, we need brung up to the modern age, to quote
going back to the atmosphere on Sunday. The atmosphere felt like it was we're getting away with this, and that's not how you should be feeling as a supporter. That we're getting away with this. Yeah, it's great. We're winning 2-3-0 whatever against Kilmarnock, but we're getting away with it because we're playing a massively inferior opposition, and we've got a team on the park who, as it stood, is a good team. I mean, I don't think you can deny that team that
I
played.
think the starting 11, the starting 11 are a good team.
However, everyone's been through the rigmarole before of a season where injuries happen, and also that the squad needs refreshed for challenge within the team, for challenge for places, all of that stuff. And when you see that not happening, that's when you've got that thing in the back of your head, like we're just getting away with this. And
you're coasting, JP, aren't you?
If you look at nearly every successful sports organisation in the world, and I'm talking about for NFL, baseball, football, basketball, they keep on changing the general managers. Every couple of years, they'll change the general managers, and they'll bring in new staff, new voices, new ideas, because that's the way that you stay successful. That is the way that happens. And you look at Liverpool, it's a refresh. Mm-hmm. It's maybe no wholesale changes, but somebody comes in which has got a different voice, saying we need to start doing things differently, because sport moves on, football moves on, and we are stuck. We are stuck in the mid-noughties, and we're listening to the Libertines and wearing bootcut jeans with shoes.
I'm not having that. I'm not having that combo. I'm not having that combo. Listen, though, right? See Celtic. See if Brendan Rodgers wants Adam Ida and Dara O'Shea and Bueno. Go and let them sign them. Go and sign the boys. Go and bring them in, because they will improve the quality of.
And what's the delay? What is the delay? If all three of those players they have been presented to the manager and he said, "I want them." Well, why have we not got?
If O'Shea's going to cost 7 million, pay it. If Ida's going to cost 7 or 8 million, pay it. Just go and pay it. Bring the players in. We need to progress as a football team. We need to. If Bueno is only allowed to leave on loan, bring him in on loan, and then try and do it at the end of the season.
But Chris Mackay went to the corner shop and bought a Kinder Bueno and gave it to Rodgers, so he's sort of done it.
Not a bad choice of confectionery, I have got to say. Gentlemen.
I prefer Star Bars all the way, man.
I like the retro. I like topics and things like that. Retro.
That's gone. Topics gone.
Oh, you're joking.
Ceased to exist.
Not good. Yeah.
Bring
back topics.
Come back as the topic in a couple of years.
Somebody told me the other day that Lilt doesn't exist anymore.
Lilt?
Aye.
Or Lout? Is it?
No, that's correct. Lilt has been assimilated as Fanta, pineapple, and lime, or lime and something. Aye. So it's it exists, but under the Fanta banner. People are going to be.
The world's gone mad. The world's gone mad.
It's not good.
I'm talking about Celtic State of Mind.
And chocolate bars. But you did bring in the fact that it could come back as the topic, which I think went under the radar there. That was underrated. Underrated part. Right. One other thing I need to speak about before getting back into the comments. There has been a leak, and it looks like it's genuine, of a third kit. And I'm looking at this leak. I'm looking at the third kit. I'm a bit of a, I don't know, saddle when it comes to jerseys. I just see generic templates with Celtic badges on them now. I like that one behind you, JP. I like the home jersey. That third kit, just rubbish. No intent.
It looks like a training top. I like it, but again, it's a picture where you can't really see. Strips always look different when you see them in person. As soon as I saw that when I opened the box, I was like, all right, because I hadn't seen it in person. Mm-hmm. But I like it. I've not had the yellow kit for 5 seasons since we had a yellow kit.
What's your favourite yellow one? What's your favourite yellow kit?
The C.R. Smith cheese and onion. Well, was it called the cheese and onion? I don't know.
Is that the one with the Space Invaders?
Aye, that one.
Yeah.
Peter Grant. Mm-hmm.
Cult icon. Talking of cult icons, yesterday, ladies and gentlemen, I was with Rudy Vata for a couple of hours. Rudy is releasing his autobiography this week, and we recorded an interview. I say an interview. This is Acsom. Isn't really an interview. It's just a discussion-based show. Rudy was a special guest. Goes out on Friday night. Some of the things he was telling us was incredible. Now, I got the book the day before, and I speed read half of it because obviously I know the Celtic side of things, but the early life, living in communist Albania, becoming an asylum seeker, and how he came about it. Unbelievable. Please tune in. It's emotional. It's incredible. When he goes to play for Albania against France, managed by Michel Platini, and after the game, it's in the park, the Prawns, right? And after the game, don't pick me up for my French, JP. I know you can speak it. He has got Cantona requests a swap, right? Cantona requests a swap with Rudy Vata. So he's got Cantona's jersey in his bag, in his sports bag, with a pair of football boots, maybe a tracksuit top, a t-shirt, and that's all he's got in the clothes he's wearing. And he goes into a police station and he seeks political asylum. Unbelievable. What a story. He then is in a refugee camp in Nantes, and he's got a choice. He can be a footballer or he can be a gangster, and he's at the crossroads. Honestly, tune on Friday night. Unbelievable story. It's going to have to be a two-parter because we only took it up to the moment he signs for Celtic. The moment he signs for Celtic. And I'm going to say something here which I find astonishing, and I hope the Wi-Fi doesn't break down in deepest, darkest Fife. When he was a kid, being brought up with his mum and dad in communist Albania, you weren't allowed to have ambition. You weren't allowed to speak other languages. There was one channel on TV. You had to go on a waiting list to get a telly, and it was a state-ran channel of propaganda. That's all you got to watch. But he remembers watching Celtic. He remembers watching Celtic coming over to Albania, and it was the game, famously, where Danny McGrain might have had to shave his beard off because they weren't allowed to have beards. They couldn't wear jeans. They weren't allowed to chew chewing gum. They couldn't grow their hair. Unbelievable. Please tune in on Friday night. It is an astonishing story with Rudy Vata. You've had the pleasure of speaking to Rudy in the past, I think, Kev. The guy, he's a unique man, and it's a unique football story.
It is a unique football story, and I'm quite glad that he found his home with us, and folk can actually say what they like about him as a player, but he never had. And that's all you can really ask for at a time where we were in a bit of transition between like Macari's side into a Burns side at Hampden and moving forward. So it was a bit of a transition period, and I didn't think Rudy let us down. I don't think
absolutely not.
So that's it.
And this is the thing. Rudy's brother Alex, 2 years his elder, he escaped the tyranny of the Albanian Communist Party on a boat. Didn't know where he was going to go, and the family didn't know where he was. Didn't know if he'd survived. You'll remember that the Irish diaspora left on what was called coffin ships because they didn't know if it was going to be their last resting place. They didn't know if they were going to rock up in Leith or New York. And the same scenario applied to Alex, who was Rudy's brother, and he jumps on a boat and he disappears. And Rudy doesn't know his destination or even if he's still alive, and the mum and the dad, they don't know. And Rudy finds out that he is alive and he's in Italy, right? And Rudy is able to escape through other means because he's representing Albania at football. But I mean, the political forces were travelling with the Albanian squad to make sure they didn't escape and all this kind of stuff. Seriously, it's a movie. It's cinematic, and it will be on our channel on Friday night. But you're right, Kev. It gave 100%. JP, that's sometimes why somebody becomes a cult icon at Celtic, isn't it?
Well, it's why you remember names, you remember faces. To get to have conversations with guys like George Cadetti, when I met him at Don Max that night. Yeah, with the bum bag, and just having a conversation with him, and it was just surreal because, he was brilliant for Celtic, and Rudy Vata was part of a time when I started going to the games, like fairly regularly with my pal Greenie and his big sister on the Bathgate supporters bus that used to leave from the Westport in Bathgate for any Bathgate natives out there. I'm pretty sure it's still the same place. The same bus leaves from the same place. So yeah, I remember Rudy Vata well, and I don't ever remember him having a bad game. Like, I mean, he did give his all. Like, there's plenty of players around about that time that didn't give their all and didn't really sort of care for Celtic. But there was players who just like hit their ceiling, and their ceiling might not have been, you know, world class or whatever, but it was the best that they could do for Celtic. And you certainly wouldn't think of Rudy Vata in any other way than somebody that gave their all for Celtic. And like you said, that's what you ask for from a player all the time.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to watching it back. I really am. Thanks to Rudy for coming on. His book is sensational. Go and pick it up. It's available now. He's doing a wee launch at Celtic Park this afternoon. Listen, thanks everybody for getting involved. A wee bit frustrated today. I think that might have come across in a few of the rants that were cut off by the poor Wi-Fi signal in Fife today for some reason. But thank you all for getting involved anyway. Give us a thumbs up. Subscribe to the channel. Loads more content coming your way. And all that's left for me to say is thank you once again to Kevin Graham and JP Mason for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.
Cheers.